Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today in Scam Week, and we'd like to just welcome everyone along. Today we have both myself, Martin O'Riordan, and Chris Haig doing our presentation. We've both been in cybersecurity for quite a long time, so we have seen a lot of the scams that do go around, and certainly some of the things that we can do to try and mitigate and try and prevent scams from happening. So welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks, Martin. Hi, everyone.
So, Chris, why are we still here? Why are we talking about this again?
Yeah, it does feel like we talk about the same things over and over, but I suppose things change over a period of time, and people need to kind of keep up. At the end of the day, this is our kind of daily in and out's our job, so we get to see this a lot, and a lot of it, I suppose, becomes very obvious to us. Whereby, I can speak to any, specifically like family, like quite often, like if I speak to my mom or an uncle or something like that, it's not top of mind. It's not something that's necessarily obvious. Some are getting a lot better, and I think the kind of public in general is getting a lot better, but it's certainly not something we can just stop talking about.
And I think that's where this year's Scamwatch theme, they're talking about that acronym of TALK and making sure that there's conversations being had around this all the time. So I think that's probably really important for everyone to just bring it up, and especially when we start talking about some of the scams. Some of them do get quite embarrassing if people have been have fallen for the scam and they feel embarrassed about it, so they don't tend to speak up, and then we just end up perpetuating the problem because other people don't know about it or know how to identify it.
Yeah, agreed. And they don't get reported either. So we don't actually see it in the stats. So even the numbers that we'll see, I think, in the next slide or two with the actual numbers, it's probably a lot larger than that. There's a lot that doesn't get reported. You talk about embarrassment for individual, but there's embarrassment as well for business, and there's that wider issue as well of loss of public confidence. Could be a big problem as well. Even if it's something that doesn't necessarily affect the public, it could be seen as not a great thing. So for instance, if a business has been scammed into and paying an invoice that is fake, for instance, could be seen as, so how good are their processes? Are they keeping my information safe, etc. So it just starts to put doubt in people's minds. So that's why we still need to talk about it.
And there are so many different scams. I mean, this slide here just doesn't even scratch the surface. There are so many different ones, and this is just probably a lot of the common ones. There are just new scams coming up all the time, and it's not just technological scams. There are just straight up people-to-people scams that happen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is quite important as well, as where people talk about hackers and that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know if the term is really good, because it's perpetuated so much on TV and etc. It almost looks glamorous, and it really isn't. It's they criminals. You might want to say cyber criminals because it's online, but at the end of the day, the mechanism for extracting money from you is exactly the same. It's criminal behavior at the end of the day, and all those the same scams that happen in the real world essentially translate quite well into the online world, and the same methods are used. So when you look at like a con artist, even the term con artist comes from confidence man. So the point is that the person is so confident that you will then believe them. And it's the same with something like a phishing scam. So they will use those same confidence things. So they'll prey on urgency, your emotion, etc. Greed is another one. So where we start to talk about like travel price scams and things like that. It's like, oh, I've won money. It's like, have you?
Yeah, and it is, technology has just given them a new medium for doing it. I mean, probably showing my age a little bit, but many years ago when you used to buy cars from reading a newspaper, so there were scams around used car sales then. So it really is still just the same old scams modernized, revamped for the 21st century.
Agreed. And then it's at scale. So something like phishing, as an example, is horrifying because it just moves so quickly.
And probably more to the point now, not only is technology enabling the scammers, it also enables some idea on collating the data, like where we know how many reports there are, we know roughly how much money is lost. We probably never know the true amount because not everything gets reported. But like this graph just shows, or this table shows a little bit about where the growth is in scams. And this is just what's been reported to the ACCC. And you can imagine just how many don't get reported as well. And when you're talking about reports, it's interesting, you and I talked about this earlier about the amount of money lost. And you look at the investment scams at the top here as being by far the largest amount of money lost. But when you look at the number of reports of investment scams on the other side, it's quite low. So it's an interesting one. So they're obviously very successful with those investment scams, and either there's not a lot of people who are getting done, but getting done with a lot of money, or a lot of them aren't reporting.
Yeah, look, I'd like to point out, just for the people watching as well, looking at graphs like this can be a little confusing, and I'll just explain what I mean. So, for instance, if we take a look at phishing on that right-hand side, we can see it's massive, right? It's by far one of the biggest ones there. But and then if you look at on the left, the phishing on the amount lost is very low. But the correlation is not exactly accurate, because phishing is the initial starting point for someone, a criminal, to get into the business. So then, is it then reporting under hacking, remote access scam, or false billing? In our experience, false billing, hacking, remote access scams start with phishing.
Yeah, and identity theft.
Agreed. So they kind of a little bit mixed up, and it's kind of difficult to correlate, this to that. It doesn't exactly work. And what we need to do is we just need to be aware of what's out there. Now, this particular presentation, we're not talking about steps a business can take to prevent phishing, etc. And we will definitely do. In fact, I think our next webinar will probably be around that very specifically. Here, for Scam Week, we're going to talk about specific scams and some of the things that you can do around that and to look for it. So it's trying to be aware of it, it's talk about it. And I definitely would encourage everyone to go and talk to friends and family about this as well, because this doesn't just affect business, it affects individuals as well.
And it starts from there. If people have really good cyber hygiene in their personal life, it translates to their business life. And we talk about that a lot, where if you've reused your passwords in your personal life and then use them in your business life, your chances of actually having a business compromise actually get increase significantly because of that.
Agreed. I mean, here we could see some of the latest scam trends. Now, all we're doing here is just highlighting some of the scams that are, that previous slide showed all the different types of scams. These are the ones that are probably most prevalent at the moment. Phishing isn't going anywhere. It's huge. It's constant. It's getting worse. We would say. So that's definitely out there. I think most people understand where that sits and some of the things to look out for. Like I said, look for emails. I mean, the key thing there is receiving an email from someone that you're not expecting is a big one. So if you don't know the source is one point of reference. But the other things that you would normally look for as well is, clicking on links. So does the URL match up? That whole hover over the link. Does it match up, or is it going somewhere else than where you're expecting? So, you see Microsoft.com as a link, you hover over it and it's got some weird URL. That's probably going to be phishing. Spelling mistakes. trying to push urgency, like do this now, or I need this money transferred immediately. Those kind of things definitely look out for. And then Martin, obviously smishing, you've had a few of those.
Yeah, so I think everyone has of late. The smishing attacks are almost relentless, but they seem to come in waves. I have a few for a couple of days, and then I'll have a gap for a while. I'm in my gap period at the moment, so it's a little bit nicer. But everyone has been getting these, and quite often they're difficult for people to identify, because that DHL one there that's on the screen, DHL does send a link in an SMS to say your parcel's on the way. Australia Post does the same thing, and it is one of those difficult scenarios where how do people identify it? And the Australia Post one is a classic one. The link does not say Australia Post.
No, they use the URL shorteners.
Shorteners, and the shorteners are how is anyone out there supposed to really be able to identify whether that's a legitimate link?
Yeah. And it's difficult to say, well, if you're not receiving a parcel, but in current COVID times, it seems everyone's receiving a parcel all the time.
Or you've probably forgotten, I ordered the thing 4 months ago.
Yes.
So
definitely.
It's really, really easy for them to, tap into that scenario, because yes, you're right. You've probably got something coming from somewhere at some point. And it's probably a good point to bring up is that this time of year, with people starting to do Christmas shopping, there will be an increase in these coming through in that time. The criminals are very in tune with seasonal changes, and they do certainly, really take advantage of that. I mean, you've seen it with all the puppy scams that came out in COVID times. That wasn't actually just a COVID thing. It's just became more prevalent because more people were trying to buy them, and backlog of the official, breeders and things became so long that people were able to go looking for the non-official breeders, and then you start having these scams where people will have a fake photo of a very cute little dog online and really try and sell you a dog. And the problem is that if you can't see and touch the dog before you part with money, it makes it really difficult for people.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
There's a couple of things that people can do is you could ask to have like a Zoom meeting with someone so you can actually see the puppy in person. Be skeptical about parting with lots of cash up front until you've actually confirmed that the puppy's there. Be very, very vigilant around additional costs that they didn't tell you about. Those things that yes, there'll need to be an additional cost for vaccination or for transport or something that they didn't mention up front. But yeah, look, it's a hard one, especially when you're talking about finding a puppy online that's in Victoria and they're going to ship it to you. How do you confirm it? It's a difficult one. The best advice would be try and only buy from somewhere where you can actually go and physically sight the puppy before you part with the cash. That would be the best advice.
Yeah, I don't know. Difficult one, but yeah.
So, a lot of these scams do tap into emotion, and it's still, the romance scams they've been around since I think the internet started. So basically, where people pretend to establish a relationship online and then start to ask for money for whatever reason, whether it's for travel. It used to be travel costs before COVID, so that they could visit from the country that they're in, or it could be because their grandma's sick, or any other reason that they start asking for money. And it's a hard one because the romance scam people actually, or the criminals, take a long time to establish that real connection.
Definitely the long con, and it's really sad actually. I mean, obviously there's a lot of lonely people, etc., that will jump on this, and I suppose it's prevalent just thinking about coming into the Christmas period as well, where it seems to be hit even harder for people that are by themselves. So this is a difficult one. We were talking about this earlier, Martin, about how you would avoid something like this, and it is incredibly difficult. But I think we both kind of agreed, as soon as it comes down to asking for money somewhere along the line, you've got to be on your guard from that point. The advice, I suppose, is never to give over money. And if the person actually did care about you, that wouldn't be a problem.
Exactly.
If it's a criminal, then that will be a problem, and they'll start to get a bit boisterous about that, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably although uncomfortable for the person at the time, it would be better to find out at that point that they're a criminal rather than a real person interested in them.
Agreed.
So, we touched on investment scams. Still huge.
Good old Squid Game.
And there seems to be a new investment scam come out every week.
There is, and honestly, it's very, very difficult to determine a lot of them. Like if you take this particular Squid Game one, if you've not heard about this, essentially it was a new cryptocurrency that came out, obviously off the back of Squid Game because of its popularity, and then just kind of riding the coattails of zeitgeist and growing very, very quickly. So here they did a good job with regards to setting up the website, having the white papers explaining how the coin worked, very much like any traditional crypto coin. This one was a slightly different around pay-to-play type scenario versus the mining type aspect. So it's slightly different. At the end of the day, there's always an inherent risk, especially with a cryptocurrency one. If this was something else, we would be talking about, looking at the usual red flag markers. Is this a Ponzi scheme, pyramid scheme, that kind of vibe? So it's more a case of, well, the more money that's invested, then the more money is available for everyone to share, which this did have those sorts of markers. But kind of people jumped on the bandwagon, and then of course it rocketed up in price, starting at less than a cent for the cryptocurrency, and I think topping out at just over 2,800 per coin. So the one thing I read, the guy invested, I think it was £300 because he was in the UK, and that investment was well over $1 million. But like we said, it was $1 million of nothing, because then that website, etc., disappeared, and so did the scammers.
And that one also feeds into when it starts to go up like that, and that person at the end of the day only lost £300. However, when they start to see those investments improving, more people start putting more money in because they're going, I can take advantage of this. And certainly some of those traditional investment scams where it's investing in emu farming or something, it's the value starts going up, or the reported value starts going up, and they go, well, if this is going to keep doubling, put some more money in and you'll start to see real results. And it's one of those hooks where they go, well, look, you've already tripled your money, you can take your money now, or you could put some more in and you could triple it again. So unfortunately, a lot of people tend to fall for that. It's going really well, I'm going to.
It's the greed aspect. Something else to look for with this is where you can see the actual value. So there's a graph, like any kind of share price or anything like that. A definite another red flag to look for here would be the constant uptick in value. Like the Squid Game never dropped. It constantly went up. And that is a sure-tail red flag. With any kind of value of coins, they're going to go up and down based on sale and etc. So, it's just something to look for.
And it used to be that, excuse me, it used to be that scenario where if it looks too good to be true, it usually is. But certainly the cryptocurrency things, because they've increased in value so rapidly, people are starting to think, oh no, things can increase that quickly and can be worth that much very quickly. So,
and the thing is, with cryptocurrency, they can. Like
Yeah.
there are legitimate ones that do that. So, you know, inherently they are risky. It's what you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we mentioned at the start, the ACCC is really trying to get the message out there to have conversations around it. So they've come up with this little acronym talk, and it really is, at the end of the day, just about talking, listening, you know, asking some questions of people. Your friends and family are always good ones to talk to about this, because, you know, you've got, you know, people who may be a little bit elderly in your family that may not understand some of these things. You've got, you know, kids that need to be really taught about how to identify some of these things up front. I mean, we talk about a lot of ways of, you know, having some skepticism around some of these scenarios, and some really simple tips. I mean, you know, you get those phone calls. I had one recently where it was purported to be a Telstra technician ringing up to talk to me about my broadband, and he straight away went into the, can I just verify, you know, your name, etc. And I said, well, you just called me. You tell me my name, because he should know. Hung up immediately. So
Yeah.
seriously, just about understanding, and that one can be a hard one with the verification of your identity. The call centers, they have these tick boxes that they have to tick off that they've verified identity before they talk to you. But if you haven't called them, you haven't actually, you know, instigated that contact, be really, really skeptical about giving over those details ever. Same with the old remote access scam, Chris.
Yeah, where it's like your computer's got a virus and I'm here to help you. I just need to get on and fix it for you. So and just coming back to talking to family, like I've seen and I've seen this a couple of times actually, and heard about it as well, where, you know, you speak to the person about like about this sort of scam where, oh, you know, it's Microsoft or whoever calls you, Microsoft support to sort out, and they would go, I would never fall for that. Like I get those calls all the time, you know, I just hang up or tell them to get lost or whatever. However, I have heard of a situation whereby that person goes, yeah, I'd never fall for it. But their problem is their kid doesn't. So, you know, their 14-year-old kid is at home. And in this particular case, the mom came home and the kid was like, oh, I sorted your computer for you. She's like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, it had a virus, but it's okay. Microsoft called and I was on the call with them and we fixed it up. Oh, really? Did you? So, you know, and that's where that conversation with family and friends does need to be had. And just translating to business, it's exactly the same. You know, it's like kind of that water cooler chat. And that's what I love about making sure that you've got a you know, cybersecurity awareness program within your business. It's not just this annual sit down and we're gonna, you know, talk at you with a 1,000 slides of what phishing is, etc. This kind of needs to be a constant kind of reminder and update of the different methods that are used, so people understand and people start to talk about it in the office, you know, yeah, like I had this particular phishing email, did you see it? Yeah, so basically your business comes together as protecting its assets and its IP.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, that conversation part and the training awareness part is something that we've talked about a lot, and it does translate both in business and at home. Teaching children and teenagers, you know, safe practices online is a really key aspect of setting them up for a healthy life going forward, a healthy internet life.
Yeah, agreed. Just understanding that it's important to protect your identity and where you put that information and what information you give out. Now, don't get me wrong, schools are starting to get a lot better at this. They're kind of starting to put those programs in place. And I think it's kind of on the back of the kind of anti-bullying online, and they kind of pull it all together and have a bigger, broader program of online and protecting your identity and etc. It's kind of like like we're talking about real world stranger danger type conversation and moving it to online as well. But it doesn't mean that you should stop talking about it as well. Having that chat, constantly updating, thinking about it is very important. I've got kids myself, and just even in cybersecurity, sometimes that conversation is difficult. It's like, do this, and it's like, why? It's like, what do you mean why? We've spoken about this so many times. So
like setting strong passwords.
Yeah, like passwords. Can you please use a password manager that I've paid for a family? You have it. It's free. Use it. Anyway.
Yes, I had the same issue. So there's a lot of places that people can go to get a bit more information or report scams. So the Scamwatch website is a good starting place. The ABA, Australian Banking Association, is also, if you've lost money, so that's a good one to start with. They have a fairly good website. Obviously, your bank itself. Certainly, really protect your identity. I don't think we can reiterate that enough. Is about protecting your identity, and it's so easy for us to just start blurting out things like date of birth and our address and the first school you attended and all these other key aspects.
Driver's license is a big one.
People
will take a photo of their driver's license and just email it. So do need to be careful with that. A lot of businesses are getting better at collecting that information. So what they'll do, I saw one the other day that I thought was pretty good. So I was doing a online chat scenario for support, and they needed to confirm identity via like a driver's ID or whatever it was. But what they do is they actually send you a link. You click on the link, it goes to a secure upload site, and you can upload via there. Again, I initiated contact. I know who I was talking to, etc. So you'll need to look at that very carefully as well, not someone initiating contact with you or sending you a link. Just also want to point out on that particular slide, ID Care. You can just Google ID Care. They do have a website as well with information. That is a good one if your ID has been compromised. And another one I just want to point out with regards to ID Care, people may not know that their identity has been taken. And one of the first things you'll notice is a credit will be taken out in your name, which will affect your credit score. So what you can do is you can sign up, and it's for free. There are websites that will monitor your credit score and your credit applications. So anytime there's a credit search in your name, it will actually send an alert and go, hey, this has just happened, and you can go in and look. And you can see the institution that's actually done the credit search. So if you have not asked for credit and there's been a credit search, you'll get alerted and you can immediately contact that institution, get more information, police can get involved, etc. Because you want to get onto that as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. So we're probably at that point where we can ask for some questions if anyone has something they would like to know or would like to ask us.
Yeah, absolutely. If they just chuck it in the chat box with any questions, we can take them from there, if there are any.
Someone's typing. Won't be long.
So I think some of the takeaways are really around being skeptical, making sure that you question whether something is legitimate, whether or not you need to put those details in. Just really always be questioning whether it's appropriate, it's a legitimate site. I mean, we didn't even touch on some scams like online shopping that looks like a legitimate store, or those things where just be really careful about giving those things over. Try and confirm whether it's a legitimate site. Really important aspects to look for.
If it is too good to be true, that is a big one. definitely look for that, especially coming up to Christmas as well with the sales, etc. The other one, just you were saying being skeptical, etc. I would again just reiterate, people get very busy at work. Scammers know that. So that phishing is going to push that urgency button. And as you've got like, a couple of 100 emails to get through, and it's coming up to the end of the year and you're frantically trying to get through them, just slow down a little bit and read it very carefully. Right.
That's funny. So we've got a question there. What do you see the sweet spot between sharing info on scams and over delivery to team members that don't absorb?
Look, I think the best way to actually do that is in small bits. Like, so don't sit people down for a 4-hour presentation on like cybersecurity. People lose interest after 30 minutes. So keep it short and keep it constant. So update on different things regularly, and do as many methods as possible. So for example, we do webinars like this. We try to keep them to 30 minutes if we can, just based on attention span, etc. When we do training internally, the videos and that we push out are generally no more than 10, 15 minutes tops, to cover off aspects that we need to. The bigger ones that cover off the more general, larger topics that might be up to 15 minutes long, do those once a month. Shorter ones, like if there's a 5-minute video on one particular thing, like let's say social engineering, or it's just around online scam or whatever it is, you can push those out weekly, right? You can also have an email update that has scam of the week. This is the latest scam that's going around the country. Those can go out weekly because it's a 60-second read, right? But again, giving people that opportunity. So I can read something in an email that's come out. I can push something out on Teams, like I pushed something out about MFA yesterday to the whole team. And that was just a funny little meme, like a little cartoon vibe. So again, different modes to get that information out.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions?
Maybe not. If anybody does have other questions, please reach out to us. We will send out this presentation, and it will have our contact details on as well, so you can email or call. I'm more than happy to have a chat with anyone around any particular issues that you have, or if it's just a general conversation. A lot of you I'm linked in with on LinkedIn. So by all means, give me a shout there as well if you need to, and we'll come back to you. So we've got that email, cybersecurity@Mercury IT. That comes to both Martin and myself. So we can have a look and get back to you on that. Absolutely.
Was there another question started there, Chris? Did you see?
No, I think it's just thank you for your time.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And yeah, as Chris mentioned, reach out to us if you have any other questions or you want to have a chat about anything cybersecurity. Always willing to give some time to try and increase people's knowledge around this area as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, for your time, and thanks for joining.
Thank you.